Today, we enter into one of the oldest and most mysterious ritual streams in the Indo-Iranian world, where the Vedic Soma and Avestan Haoma appear not just as plants or drinks, but as living forces of revelation, vitality, and sacred presence. Across the Hindu and Zoroastrian spiritual systems, these names appear as sacramental forces linking earth and heaven, terrestrial and celestial, priest and deity, body and immortality. Long before later philosophical systems tried to explain their meaning and pinpoint their identity, Soma in the Rigveda and Haoma in the Avesta already stood at the center of ritual life, acting as pressed, prepared, offered, and consumed sacred sacraments tied to sacrifice, inspiration, and divine exchange. The Sanskrit root of soma is connected to squeezing or pressing, a reminder that the rite itself begins with the bodily labor of extraction, purification, and transformation. The physical drink was made by pounding the stalks of the plant with sacred grinding stones. The pressed juice was strained through sheep's wool and mixed with milk, curds, or honey. In the Rigveda, the 9th mandala is especially devoted to Soma Pavamana, the purified soma, showing that this was not a minor ingredient, but an entire liturgical universe built around a divine drink. Hymns describe this drink as bringing ecstasy, rapturous joy, heightened awareness, and immortal inspiration. In the Iranian world, Haoma appears in similar fashion at the center of the Yasna ceremony, and especially the Haoma Yasht, where the plant, the juice, and the divinity likewise converge in a single sacred identity. Today's ritual, conducted in fire temples, requires crushing the Haoma stems in an iron mortar with pomegranate twigs, well water, and goat's milk to make para Haoma. The priest consumes this consecrated brew to absorb the blessings of Vohu Mana, the good mind, and ward off evil. These traditions are usually treated as sibling branches of an older Proto-Indo-Iranian inheritance, meaning they preserve echoes of a common ritual imagination before the Vedic and Iranian peoples diverged. Both systems associate the drink with strength, healing, inspiration, and a kind of life-giving power that belongs equally to kings, priests, warriors, and seekers. In Vedic poetry, Soma is praised as exhilarating and luminous, often linked to Indra, the great warrior god who drinks it before battle and attains cosmic victory. In Iranian religion, Haoma is similarly connected with protection, vitality, righteousness, and priestly empowerment within the Yasna ceremony. The deeper spiritual idea in both cultures is that the pressed juice is not only consumed by humans, but offered upward so that the gods themselves participate in a mutual circuit of nourishment, revelation, and sacred reciprocity. That is why Soma and Haoma belong to a broader pattern found in many esoteric systems. The belief that a properly prepared substance can become a bridge between visible and invisible worlds, like the Kykeon of the Greek mystery rites, the Amrita of later Indian thought, or the sacramental wine and bread of more familiar liturgical systems. Before we begin, I want to take a moment and thank our monthly members. You help to fuel the enlightening education that benefits many around the world. Your support enables S.E.E.K to continue creating content, providing a path for all spiritual seekers. Support us with a monthly membership on YouTube, Patreon, or Ko-Fi at Join S.E.E.K, or on Facebook at Join S.E.E.K1. Become a member and you will see your name in future videos. Thank you. What makes this material so compelling is that Soma and Haoma sit at the crossroads of botany, myth, ritual, and spiritual psychology. The question was never only what plant is it, but what does this plant do in the religious imagination? That answer opens the story outward into sacrifice, kingship, priesthood, ecstatic knowledge, and the ancient search for immortality. As the first Indo-European civilizations emerge into the light of written history, The Vedic and Iranian traditions preserve some of the most influential testimonies to a sacramental drink that appears in many respects entheogenic in function. These are Soma in the Rigveda of Hinduism, the oldest religious text still in continuous and reverent use, and Haoma in the Avesta of Zoroastrianism. These two sacraments, which scholars believe may be one and the same concoction, spread through contact in the Indo-Iranian world, and are described not merely as beverages, but as deities and living presences who speak, grant vision, and place the sacrificer among the gods. Modern scholarship has long debated the botanical identity of Soma and Haoma, with proposals ranging from ephedra species to Peganum harmala or Syrian rue, cannabis, the fly agaric mushroom as proposed by R. Gordon Wasson in his book Soma, Divine Mushroom of Immortality, psilocybin mushrooms as proposed by Terence McKenna in his work Food of the Gods, and other candidates, yet no single identification has one universal agreement. That uncertainty itself matters because the texts do not merely name a plant, they describe a ritual process, a mythic genealogy, and a divine essence that cannot be reduced to chemistry alone. The debate between ethnomycologist R. Gordon Wasson and philosopher Terence McKenna over the identity of Soma centers on two distinct fungal candidates. While both believed Soma was a psychoactive mushroom, they disagreed on the specific species and the chemical nature of the experience. In his landmark 1968 book, Soma, Divine Mushroom of Immortality, R. Gordon Wasson proposed that Soma was the Amanita muscaria or fly agaric mushroom, the red and white capped mushroom traditionally found in birch and pine forests. Wasson mapped the linguistic and geographic origins of the Rigveda to regions where Amanita muscaria naturally occurs. To explain Vedic references to filtering the liquid and drinking purified urine, Wasson pointed to Siberian shamanic traditions where shamans would drink amanita and recycle its active compounds by drinking the urine of those who consumed the raw mushroom. The amanita experience is largely considered a deliriant and GABA-ergic state, inducing dreamlike sleep, spatial distortion, and deep physical heaviness, rather than classical visionary psychedelic journeys. Terence McKenna challenged Wasson's theory in his 1992 book Food of the Gods, arguing instead that the authentic Soma was actually Psilocybe cubensis, a species of psilocybin-containing mushroom. McKenna argued that the descriptions in the Rigveda describe a deeply visionary, euphoric, and transcendent state. He contended that the effects of Amanita muscaria were too clumsy, toxic, and deliriant to match the poetic, godlike praise given to Soma. McKenna also famously formulated the stoned ape theory, positing that the consumption of Psilocybe cubensis, which grows natively on cattle dung in grassy tropical environments, spurred the evolutionary leap in human language, self-reflection, and religion. Other hypotheses by scholars like Matthew Clark and David Flattery suggest Soma was not a single plant, but a complex formula akin to Amazonian ayahuasca, combining a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, or MAOI, like Syrian rue, with DMT-containing plants. Some scholars emphasize that the preparation involved pressing stalks, straining juices, mixing with water or milk, and reciting hymns or liturgies during the rite, which suggests a highly formal sacrificial procedure rather than casual ingestion. In the Vedic world, Soma is tied to the altar, the priests, the stones, the wooden strainer, the vessels, and the hymn cycles, especially in the performance of the Soma sacrifice where sound, substance, and offering are inseparable. The association between Soma, both the sacred plant and the intoxicating ritual drink, and bowls is a prominent metaphor rather than a physical tethering. Fortifying McKenna's hypothesis, psilocybin mushrooms exclusively grow in the nutrient-rich dung of cattle. This connection to cattle symbolizes masculine virility, cosmic power, and the surging force of the liquid. Part of the Soma sacrament was offered into the sacrificial fire, and the rest was consumed by priests and worshippers. In the Rigveda, Soma is repeatedly praised as the immortal elixir that confers immortality, pressed from a plant, filtered, mixed with other ingredients, and consumed by priests, who then sing inspired hymns describing luminous realms, cosmic order, and the overcoming of death. In the famous hymn 48 of Mandala number 8, the poet famously declares, "We have drunk the Soma, we have become immortal, we have arrived at the light, we have found the gods." Soma was consumed by priests and the warrior god Indra, and was said to provide divine strength and vigor before battle. Within this text, Soma is a sacred plant, a ritual beverage, and a deified elixir aligned with lunar cycles and symbolism. Known as Amrita, the nectar of immortality, Soma is widely interpreted as an entheogen, a substance that alters consciousness to induce mystical experiences, divine visions, and direct communion with the gods. Around the same time, or a few centuries later, Zoroastrian texts like the Avesta describe Haoma with strikingly similar language. A sacred plant whose juice is ritually extracted and offered, whose consumption purifies and strengthens the soul for its journey through the cosmic conflict between truth and falsehood. Most modern discussions converge on the idea that whatever the plant was, it functioned as a visionary sacrament, structuring priestly experience, theological imagination, and the liturgical calendar. In the Iranian world, the Yasna ceremony likewise frames Haoma as part of a disciplined ritual choreography involving priestly roles, recitation, and offerings that sustain the cosmic order. In historical Zoroastrian practice, the plant used is a species of ephedra. While certain ephedra varieties yield the stimulant ephedrine, they do not induce visionary or hallucinogenic states. It is generally agreed that ephedra has been the botanical substitute for whatever the lost prehistoric entheogen may have been. The drink is therefore not simply psychedelic in a modern sense, because its sacred power lies inside a complete ritual ecology of purity, invocation, lineage, and divine attention. In later Indian reflection, Soma can be read alongside Amrita, the deathless nectar, and in broader esoteric language, it resembles the universal symbol of a hidden elixir that grants vision, vitality, and contact with the spiritual source. Iranian tradition offers a parallel through Haoma's association with healing, offspring, strength, and spiritual benefit, showing that the drink was never only medicinal or mythic, but both unitive and cosmological. The priestly setting also matters. In Zoroastrian practice, the ritual specialist does not merely use Haoma, but reenacts a primordial sacred order in which recitation and preparation become acts of cosmic maintenance. This is a key theme in entheogenic history as a whole. Sacred plants in many cultures are not isolated substances, but instruments of authorized transformation embedded in ritual law and sacred speech. From here, we can see why Soma and Haoma were never just botanical mysteries. They were maps of how societies understood divine power entering the human world. That makes the next layer of our story even more important. The myths surrounding these sacraments explain why they were considered heavenly, even before they were ever handled on earth. The mythology of Soma and Haoma consistently places them in a celestial or pre-human realm, as though the plant or divine essence descended from a higher order into the mortal world. One recurring motif in the Rigveda is the bird or eagle that brings Soma down from heaven, a mythic image of stolen fire, hidden wisdom, and sacred contraband that resonates with other world traditions of celestial theft and divine gift. Yajna is a divine falcon in Hindu mythology identified with the fire god Agni, who ascends to heaven to bring Soma or nectar down to earth, with the intention of rejuvenating and revitalizing all things that exist on the planet. As the falcon fled with the divine elixir, it was struck down by an arrow from Krishanu. Later Brahmanical texts describe the falcon losing a wing, and verses often describe this audacious heist resulting in the loss of the thief's head or severed feathers as they safely deliver the Soma to humanity. Thematically similar, the Greek titan Prometheus and his mythic theft of fire from the gods could be reinterpreted as providing humanity with entheogenic psychoactive plants or substances to spark human consciousness, self-awareness, and spiritual awakening. This motif places Soma in the same symbolic family as Promethean fire, the Chinese immortality traditions, and other narratives where sacred knowledge arrives through transgressive retrieval, as seen in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve with the fruit and the serpent. Another Hindu myth centers around Rahu attempting to steal the nectar of immortality during the churning of the cosmic ocean. After the Devas or gods and Asuras or demons churn the ocean to obtain Amrita, the demon Rahu disguised himself as a Deva to join the line of gods receiving the nectar. Rahu managed to take a sip of the Amrita. However, the sun and moon gods recognized his true identity and alerted Lord Vishnu. Before the nectar could pass Rahu's throat into his body, Vishnu used his Sudarshana chakra to sever the demon's head. Because the nectar had already touched his mouth, both his head and body remained immortal, becoming the celestial bodies Rahu the head and Ketu the body. In Iranian parallels, the Haoma hymn preserves ancient priestly praise for a plant that grants strength, knowledge, and excellence to those who serve the sacred order. The deity appears to stand both inside and above the ritual, as if the god of the drink is also its first priest, first sacrificer, and first transmitter. In Zoroastrian myth, the demon of disease and greed called Ashma and a lake-dwelling monster called Gandharva are famously known for their attempts to destroy or monopolize the sacred Haoma. In the sacred scriptures, the yellow Haoma is invoked as a direct weapon against the dark forces. The Haoma Yasht details how the spirit of Haoma is called upon to crush the death aims of the Druj, representing lying and falsehood, opposed to Asha, the truth. When the demons realized Hauma's power to strengthen and protect the righteous, they attempted to destroy or taint the earthly plant. To counter this, Haoma is petitioned to strike back directly at the bodies of the wicked who plot destruction. The texts recount how these forces of chaos sought to compromise the divine plant, which grants immortality, strength, and spiritual awakening. Mentioned a moment ago, another prominent myth involves the monster Gandharva. In the Yashts, the hymns to the angels, this yellow-heeled aquatic demon lurks in the cosmic ocean Bhurukasha, where the mythic white Haoma or Gaukarena grows. Gandharva attempts to conquer the waters and seize or destroy the ultimate source of immortal life. To protect the sacred plant, the heroic archer sage Karasaspa is dispatched to slay the monster Gandharva. In the mythos, Karasaspa battles the beast in deep waters, binding him and defeating the threat to ensure that Haoma remains safe for humanity. This myth shares deep ancient roots with Vedic Hinduism, where the equivalent elixir Soma was also heavily sought after and protected from demons by the thunder god Indra. That is one reason scholars often describe Haoma and Soma as both substance and divinity, since the same name can refer to the plant, the juice, the sacrificial drink, and the divine being invoked by the rite. In the Vedic hymns, Soma's relation to Indra is especially important because Indra's victory over the dragon-like Vritra is frequently linked to intoxicating or invigorating power, cosmic rain, and the release of waters. This means the drink participates in a larger myth of overcoming obstruction, whether that obstruction is drought, darkness, ignorance, or death. The Iranian parallels echo this through a ritual language of strengthening, healing, and right order, showing a cosmic sacrificial grammar even where later theology differs. The result is a spiritual system in which the sacred substance mediates between the realm of the gods and the formation of human beings, especially priests, kings, and those who seek insight. In esoteric terms, the drink becomes an outer sign of an inner ascent, a visible symbol of invisible elevation. And that is why later traditions so often reinterpret Soma-like imagery as light, nectar, wisdom, or a subtle spiritual essence. Now we move from the mythic origins of the sacred drink into the ritual world where it was pressed, praised, and made spiritually effective. This is where Soma and Haoma become not just legends of heaven, but methods for organizing sacrifice, priesthood, and sacred experience on earth. In the Vedic world, Soma is inseparable from Yajna, the sacrificial act that binds humans, gods, and cosmic order together through precise speech, gesture, and offering. In the Vedic tradition, a Yajna or sacrifice is a sacred fire ritual, while Soma is the sanctified plant juice offered within it. Together, they form one of the oldest and most revered spiritual ceremonies in Hinduism, designed to maintain cosmic harmony and invoke divine blessings. The priests who handled Soma were not casual celebrants, but trained ritual specialists, and the performance depended on exact recitation, the use of pressing stones, filtration, mixing vessels, and the distribution of the drink to those authorized to partake. The Rigveda describes Soma thus: "O Soma, you alone created the medicines that heal us. You have provided expanse to this universe, and you alone enlighten the world. I have tasted the sweet drink of life, knowing that it inspires good thoughts and joyous expansiveness to the extreme, and all the gods and mortals seek it together, calling it honey. When we have drunk you, O drop of Soma, be good to our heart, kind as a father to his son, thoughtful as a friend to a friend. Far-famed Soma, stretch out our lifespan so that we may live. Be kind and merciful to us, Soma. Be good to our heart, without confusing our powers in your whirlwind. King Soma, do not enrage us, do not terrify us, do not wound our heart with your dazzling light. Give help when you see the evil plans of the gods in your own house. Generous King, sweep away hatreds, keep away failures." The 9th mandala of the Rigveda, often called the Soma mandala, shows how deeply the tradition honored the purified juice as a divine presence that flows, clarifies, and awakens. The well-loved myth, Soma, was made to flow, the stream of the creative juice. The sage drew waters to himself. O Soma, purify us from everywhere, enter us with excitement and strengthen our speech. Inculcate a sharp intellect within us. Purify Soma when effused with stones, which bands move rapidly, and pour the sweet milk in the meath. Widespread out for thee is the sieve of thy purifying. He tastes not that delight who is unripe, and whose body has not suffered in the heat of the fire. They alone are able to bear that and enjoy it, who have been prepared by the flame. The strainer through which the heat of him is purified is spread out in the seat of heaven. Its threads shine out and stand extended. You are the ocean, you reveal everything. Under thy law are the 5 places. Thou transcends heaven and earth. Purifier, there are the lights, there the sun. Brahman among devas, leader among the seer poets, sage among the wise, the bull among the animals. Over the cleansing sieve goes Soma singing. Effused by means of pressing stones, upon the oxhide visible, they, treasure finders, have announced food unto us from every side. These Soma juices, skilled in song, purified, blent with milk and curd, when moving and when firmly laid in oil, resemble lovely suns. Soma is praised as a lord of ecstasy, a healer, a protector, and a source of poetic inspiration. which is why the hymns present him as both a ritual substance and a living god who animates speech itself. In this setting, inspiration is not merely emotional excitement, it is a sacred intensification of consciousness produced through ritual, mantra, and offering. The priest, poet, or rishi becomes a listener and transmitter of revelation, and the rite becomes a technology of remembrance that preserves cosmic truth across generations. This is one reason Soma has often been placed beside other initiatory elixirs in world religion, from alchemical potions to Dionysian wine to Greek ambrosia. Each tradition imagines a substance that carries more than matter alone. Yet, the Vedic texts are careful to embed Soma in law, order, and hierarchy rather than free-form ecstasy, which means the drink serves dharma or cosmic order as much as delight. That tension between exaltation and discipline is one of the most important features of the tradition, because sacred power must be handled, not merely sought. Even when later commentators speculated about Soma's identity, the ritual emphasis remained on proper preparation, sacred speech, and the transformation of the sacrificer through contact with a divine medium. In this way, Soma belongs to the same broad family as the sacramental and entheogenic spiritual systems of many ancient cultures, where altered states are not accidental side effects, but the purpose of a consecrated religious act. The result is a world in which the plant, the hymn, the altar, and the cosmos are all parts of one operating system of sacred exchange. The Iranian tradition keeps that same structure, but it is expressed through the priestly language of the Yasna ceremony, where Haoma is treated as both a ceremonial ritual substance and divinity. When we place these spiritual systems side by side, we can see how an Indo-Iranian inheritance continued to evolve into different religious worlds while retaining the same sacred grammar. Originating in the 2nd millennium BCE, the Yajna ceremony is the primary liturgical ritual of Zoroastrianism, centered entirely around the preparation, offering, and consumption of Haoma. Taking roughly 2 hours to complete, the sacrament is celebrated before a sacred fire to invoke divine blessings and strengthen the material creations of Ahura Mazda against evil. In Zoroastrian practice, Haoma appears in the Yasna liturgy as part of a carefully ordered sequence of recitations and offerings that maintain purity, righteousness, and divine support. Before the main ritual begins, the priests perform the paragna to prepare the implements and ingredients. The two officiating priests must have undergone the highest religious purification. The sacred Haoma twigs are cleaned and set upon a stone slab. The main liturgy involves the recitation of the Yasna texts, a collection of 72 chapters containing old Avestan hymns, including the Gathas, verses composed by the prophet Zoroaster himself. Throughout the chanting, the priests ceremonially pound the Haoma twigs in a metallic mortar. The extracted juice is consecrated and ultimately offered to the waters, or to the sacred fire. A small draught of the consecrated Haoma juice is ritually consumed by the officiating priests to signify spiritual awakening and divine connection. The Haoma Yasht preserves praise for Haoma as a powerful and beneficent presence associated with healing, offspring, strength, and the victory of the righteous. The Haoma Yasht is found in Yasna 9-11, which contains mythical accounts of Haoma and details the priests gathering, pounding, and straining the plant with water and milk. Yasna 9.2 says the following: "Thereupon did Haoma answer me, he the Holy One, and driveth death afar. I am, O Zarathustra Haoma, pray to me, prepare me for the taste, praise me so that the other benefactors may praise me." Yasna 9.17 describes the desires of the consumer: strength, victory, health, healing, and vigor. This do I ask of thee, O Haoma. Yasna 10.8 exclaims, "All other toxicants go hand in hand with the bloody spear, but Hauma's stirring power goes hand in hand with friendship. of all the healing virtues, Haoma, whereby thou art a healer, grant me some. Yasna 10.13 through 14 reads, Homage to Haoma, who, through contentedness, makes the mind of a poor man as great as that of a rich man. Homage to Haoma, who so elevates the mind of the poor man that he gets enlightened through knowledge. At the first force of thy pressure, O intelligent, at the crushing of the Haoma, I proclaim this praise, together with the libations and the sacred twigs. In Yasna 22 through 27, these chapters provide step-by-step ritual instructions. They dictate the chanting of hymns while crushing the Haoma twigs in a mortar and straining the liquid to offer it to the waters. Beyond the Yasnas, we find the Haoma ceremonial ritual in other texts. In the Vindidad, a later priestly code that outlines the purity laws required for officiating priests and specifies ritual equipment, this text describes the mortar and pestle used to process the sacred plant. The Book of Arda Viras is a visionary text describing a high priest consuming a mixture of Haoma and Mang or Henbane to induce a trance state that allows the soul to travel to the realm of the afterlife. In the Pahlavi Rivayats, these commentaries elaborate on the ritual protocols, including the mythological origins of Haoma and the foundational theology behind the rites. Unlike a modern recreational intoxicant, Haoma belongs to a liturgical world in which holiness is measured by alignment with truth, known in Iranian religion as Asha, the cosmic principle of order and rightness. This makes Haoma a spiritual instrument of order, not disorder, even if its effects may have induced heightened perception or bodily vitality. The priestly act of preparing Haoma becomes a reenactment of primordial harmony, echoing the idea that correct ritual action helps preserve the structure of the universe. The older Indo-Iranian continuum is visible here in language, mythic pattern, and sacrificial function, showing that the Vedic and Iranian branches diverge from a deep common root, while developing different theological emphases. But the history does not end with ancient ritual. These names traveled into later interpretations, scholarly debates, and spiritual reinventions. That long afterlife is part of what makes Soma and Haoma so important for understanding the wider entheogenic imagination of Eurasia. Like the Vedic Soma and Avestan Haoma, many sacred traditions preserved accounts of visionary elixirs believed to confer illumination, immortality, divine communion, kingship, healing, prophetic sight, initiatory rebirth, or ascent into celestial realms. The Amazonian ayahuasca of the Shipibo Canibo and Mestizo curanderos, the peyote rites of the Huichol and Native American Church, the Mazatec veladas with psilocybin mushrooms, the Bwiti Iboga sacrament of Gabon, the fly agaric traditions associated with Siberian shamanism, the mead of poetry in Norse mythology, the nectar and ambrosia of the Olympian gods, the Mesoamerican Teonanacatl and Ololiuqui sacraments, and the alchemical tinctures and philosophic drafts of Hermetic and Rosicrucian symbolism, all reflect humanity's enduring intuition that consciousness may be refined through sacred communion with the living mysteries of nature. If one looks across tantric, alchemical, mystery religious, and sacramental traditions, one repeatedly finds the same essential idea. A consecrated substance can become a vehicle for divine presence when handled with correct knowledge and sacred intent. Soma and Haoma are among the oldest and clearest expressions of that idea, and their survival in text, ritual memory, and scholarly debate ensures that they remain central to the study of sacred intoxication and spiritual transformation. The Rigveda and the Iranian Avesta preserve some of the oldest surviving religious hymns on earth, and within them Soma and Haoma are described not merely as symbols, but as sacred visionary substances, pressed, filtered, consumed, and praised as living mediators between humanity and the divine. The hymns repeatedly describe heightened perception, luminous revelation, ecstatic courage, poetic inspiration, communion with immortality, encounters with celestial intelligences, and states in which the boundaries between human consciousness and cosmic order appear dissolved. In the 9th mandala of the Rigveda, Soma is called a god, a plant, a drink, and a force that makes poets inspired and leads us to the gods, while Haoma in the Zoroastrian tradition grants strength, visionary wisdom, victory, and spiritual exaltation. These are not casual metaphors embedded in the margins of religion, but central sacramental technologies situated at the very foundation of Indo-Iranian spirituality. Because these texts emerge from the extraordinary ancient stratum of religious consciousness, many scholars of comparative religion and entheogenic studies, including R. Gordon Wasson, Albert Hoffman, Carl A. P. Ruck, and Jonathan Ott, regarded Soma and Haoma as potentially among the earliest historically recorded examples of ritualized entheogenic experience. Their significance lies not simply in identifying a single plant candidate, whether Amanita muscaria, ephedra, Peganum harmala, Psilocybe cubensis, cannabis, or another now lost species, but in revealing that humanity's earliest records preserve spiritual literature that already places altered states of awareness at the center of revelation, cosmology, priesthood, kingship, healing, and sacred knowledge. This becomes philosophically important because it suggests that mystical consciousness may have not emerged solely from abstract theology or institutional religion, but from direct encounters with extraordinary states of mind, induced through disciplined ritual, fasting, chanting, meditation, sensory ordeal, and potentially psychoactive sacraments. The recurring pattern across global spiritual history suggests that entheogenic experience may have functioned as a catalyst for humanity's earliest intuitions of transcendence, immortality, divine presence, cosmic unity, and the survival of consciousness beyond ordinary perception. Soma and Haoma therefore stand not only as ancient religious artifacts, but as textual evidence that the roots of spiritual consciousness itself may lie in humanity's confrontation with the mysterium tremendum, or awe-inspiring mystery, within altered states of awareness. The deepest lessons from Soma and Haoma are that ancient people did not separate the spiritual from the material in the way modern thought often does. They understood the holy elixir as a passage into sovereignty, initiation, divine insight, eternal life, and the broader sacramental spiritual systems woven throughout human history. In the end, Soma and Haoma endure because they name a human longing that appears again and again across civilizations, the desire to touch the divine through the material medium that transforms the seeker from within. Whether we read them through Vedic hymnody, Zoroastrian liturgy, botanical theory, comparative mythology, or the history of esoteric religion, they remain symbols of concentrated sacred power. They reveal a world where song could summon presence, where ritual could preserve order, and where a pressed plant could become an immortal current flowing between gods and humans. Thematically, Soma Haoma rites encode many elements that will become staples of later esoteric and mystical traditions. The ingestion of a specially prepared substance in a tightly controlled ritual setting, the expectation of access to deeper truth, heightened insight, and even union with the divine, and a strong emphasis on correct preparation, purity, and the moral character of the officiants. The Soma drinking priest is a kind of proto-Gnostic, using a plant sacrament to ascend into a realm of timeless truth, while the Haoma ritualist participates in a cosmic drama that maps the effects of the drink onto dualistic metaphysics of light and darkness. Later esoteric currents, from alchemical elixir lore to some strands of tantric praxis, inherit this idea that a carefully prepared substance, whether understood as literal, symbolic, or psycho-energetic, can catalyze gnosis, transmutation, and liberation. Even contemporary psychedelic practitioners, who work with psilocybin, LSD, or ayahuasca in quasi-ritual settings, often describe their experiences in language uncannily reminiscent of Vedic and Iranian hymns, speaking of light, immortality, cosmic order, and the dissolution of the fear of death, which suggests that the entheogenic states exert a consistent pressure on religious vocabulary across millennia. The oldest layers of human religion consistently unite three elements that rarely appear together by accident: sacred plants or potions, direct visionary revelation, and claims of divine knowledge inaccessible through ordinary consciousness. In the Vedic corpus, Soma is not treated as metaphorical ornamentation, but as a ritually extracted substance consumed by priests who then report illumination, immortal insight, communion with gods, heightened speech, ecstatic power, and cosmic perception. This same structural pattern appears independently across geographically isolated civilizations, with no direct cultural continuity. Archaeology further strengthens the argument, as chemical residue analysis has identified psychoactive compounds in ancient ritual contexts from multiple civilizations, while neuropsychology demonstrates that entheogenic states reliably produce experiences interpreted as sacred, unitary, transcendent, noetic, and metaphysically real across cultures. The convergence of textual testimony, ritual continuity, archaeochemical evidence, comparative mythology, and modern neuroscience forms a cumulative case suggesting that altered states induced through sacred plants were not peripheral curiosities in religious history, but may have served as one of the original engines through which humanity first conceived gods, immortality, revelation, cosmic order, and the hidden architecture of consciousness. In our next video, join us as we move from the Indo-Iranian sacramental world into the dense and fascinating terrain of Mediterranean entheogens, where wine, mystery, vision, and initiation took on new forms in Greek, Roman, and neighboring traditions. There we will explore how sacred intoxication, ritual secrecy, and divine encounter continued to evolve across a different cultural landscape, while preserving many of the same archetypal questions about transformation and transcendence. Join us next time as we move from the Indian Soma and Iranian Haoma into the vast terrain of Mediterranean entheogens. Where will our expansive exploration of entheogenic or psychedelic plants found throughout global spiritual history take us after the Mediterranean world? Like and subscribe to find out. Thank you for watching. Find more at joinseek.org.